The question, Michael, explains a lot, though, doesn't it? It explains a hell of a lot of problems and anomalies that we have.
It opens up a lot of possibilities. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And we have Jesus saying in the book of John before Pilate, uh, you are from below, I am from above.
Mm.
Your kingdom is of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. Now, either he was speaking very metaphorically or he was speaking literally.
Sure, sure. You mentioned Ezekiel's wheel, Ezekiel there. There's a thing called Ezekiel's wheel. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because are we talking a UFO here? Ezekiel?
Well, there's a wonderful book called The Spaceships of Ezekiel. The guy's last name is Blumrich, Blumrich. He was a NASA scientist. And what he did, and you can Google this, the Spaceships of Ezekiel, what he did was he took now remember, this is a NASA scientist, and he takes the information from the book of Ezekiel about what Ezekiel said he saw, and it's on the cover of his book, and it's an aircraft. It's a flying saucer.
Right.
And Ezekiel is taken up into this, and he talks about what he sees. The Lord, he calls the Lord sitting on the throne, and he talks about what the throne looks like, and it seemed like it could have been a tile floor with colors going on and off. But I mean, this is definitely a craft, and not only because of this, but it drops him off places. I mean, it picks him up and it takes him places.
Sure.
It's like a taxi. And so, what do we do? Again, do we say, oh, come on, man, these guys are crazy? Or do we say that these brothers and sisters, our ancestors, are saying that we have had contact? And the technology, of course, is what blows them out of the water. Mm-hmm. And they would be gods. These extraterrestrials would be gods to primitive human beings.
Sure.
If we took an iPhone out and pulled it out in front of Ezekiel, he may say, man, that looks like something I've seen on the ship. Yeah. But this technology, it's godlike.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's
godlike. And I think that the Bible is full of these types of stories. Again, I go back to Isaiah. How did Isaiah know that the earth was round? How did he know that it was a sphere?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You must follow von Daniken's work then a little.
Yes, he was very influential. He wasn't the most... See, a lot of people say he wasn't scientific. I didn't care about what scientific meant. It was just that he opened up possibilities.
Yeah.
With the Nazca lines in South America. I mean, who is making... It looks like an airfield, but you can only see it from above.
Sure.
So why would our ancient ancestors make that airstrip? Yeah. Not unless, if they made it at all. But it's the technology is there, and we need to be looking at this.
That was my show, Michael. Funny,
yeah.
I just did a show on Wednesday with Brian Forster on the Nazca lines. Funny enough.
Yes, I mean, I just had a friend come back from Peru. She brought me some crystals back. I'm meeting her for dinner tomorrow evening, and so I can't wait because crystals are very powerful and that kind of thing. And a lot of people think, oh my God, it's still New Age. This is not New Age stuff, friends. This is ancient knowledge that we're rediscovering. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us there's nothing new under the sun. It's just that this knowledge is new to us, and so we say it's New Age, but this is ancient knowledge, that the fact that thoughts are things, the fact that you create your own reality. Psalm 82 says, is it not said that ye are gods and children of the Most High? Mm-hmm. There's a God quality in us, if you want to use the word. You can use another word, divine mind, universal intelligence, the source, the force. Call it what you will, but call on it because it's inside of us. It's like going to the ocean and taking a drop of water, taking some water out of the ocean, and the water that you put in the glass from the ocean starts to think it's separate from the ocean. No, you're not separate from the ocean. I just put you in a glass. You're part of the ocean. The ocean's part of you. You just have a different container now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we've been taught to think that we are separate, that we are miserable sinners, that we are We're anything but as powerful as we really are. Do we do heinous things to each other? Of course we do. Do we kill and murder each other? Of course we do. Out of ignorance.
Out of ignorance, exactly. Out of ignorance to what we are.
Out of ignorance.
For sure. So, Michael, where does Jesus fit into all this? That's the big question there, I guess.
Well, for me, I look at Jesus as an example of what is potential in me and you. I mean, if he says, and I believe he did say something similar to it, that the kingdom of heaven is within you, then that means that the potential to be who he was or is, and I'm not trying to be Jesus, I'm trying to be the best Michael I can be, but there's the potential in me to love. There's the potential to love wastefully, as the Reverend Bishop Spong used to say, or still says. I mean, he's not dead. But I love that, to love wastefully, to forgive, to be healed and to heal, to love. I mean, that's all potential in me. And so the teachings of Jesus, whether you think or one thinks he's a hybrid or not, I mean, there certainly is a great possibility of that. But basically, he's the great example. He's not the exception. And there's a quote, I think it's in the book of Matthew, when he's saying to the disciples, greater things than I do, you can do.
Sure.
But we don't. But the only thing that keeps us from doing that is that we don't believe it. Not really. And I'm not talking about walking on water. I'm not talking about changing water into wine. I'm talking about being the full, creative, vital, robust, health, loving people that we really can be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about miracles per se, but that is a miracle, isn't it? To be able to be loving and healing towards one another. That's where the healing takes place. I think Jesus was part human and part extraterrestrial.
Demigod.
I would say hybrid.
Hybrid.
Yeah, a demigod for me has the connotation of a tyrant. I know that's not what you're implying, but I think he was a hybrid. Like I said, if the Holy Spirit, i.e., UFO technology going into the embryo, because see, virgin, we can do it two ways. The word alma in Hebrew means virgin. St. Jerome changed it to Jesus was born of a virgin, a woman whose hymen wasn't broken. No, that's not what it meant at all. In Hebrew, alma means virgin, means young girl. People had kids early, or then Miriam could have been about 14, 15, 16 years old at the time of Jesus' birth. However, if she was a virgin, virgin meaning young girl, but let's say she had not known a man, if I can use that parlance, if she had not known a man, and the angel Gabriel, whenever he's visiting these women, whether it's Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, again, Manoah, Samson's, whether it's Sarah, when the angel, I don't know if it's Gabriel, I don't know who comes to her, but an angel, a messenger comes, and she's beyond the age of women when she's past menopause, and she gets pregnant, certainly there's some type of technology, some type of artificial insemination to make a woman 99 years old, talking about Sarah, have a child. So if you can do that, perhaps you can have a woman who's never made love to a man before have a child. And here we have Jesus. And so his father is not from this world, and his mother is, and that means he's not fully human.
Sure. The evidence is there.
It's there to look at. I mean, it could be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I've studied both sides of the question, that Jesus was just a human being like everybody else, because, he's called the Son of Man, and, there's some writers who don't mention Luke and John. They don't mention any angels or anything like that coming into the story of Jesus. Matthew does that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark doesn't even have a resurrection at the end of his gospel. So we don't know, but there's something there to look at.
Sure. Tell me about the Quran. I tell you, it's something I have come across as the only incident that I know of, but it's not typically UFO, but they have knowledge of the star system Sirius, and somebody's pointed this out to me before that they know the orbital period of Sirius and its parent star, Sirius A and B, is 50 years. They have it wrote in a verse in the Quran, just as I mentioned to you the doggone the last time we spoke.
Yes, yes. Well. Again, first of all, the characters in the First and Second Testament, obviously, and in the First Testament, Old and New Testaments, are in the Quran. We just have Mary is Miriam, and Jesus, of course, is in the Quran. So there you have that. The other thing I wanted to say, just to go back, we don't have a Hebrew religion until the Exodus story. So if what I'm saying is true, then the Jewish religion was started by extraterrestrials. So that's what I'm saying. Now, in the Quran, we have a messenger coming to, again, and please buy the book, pick up your Quran, but buy my book, and you can compare them. The angel Gabriel, where do we see Gabriel? Well, he's all in the New Testament. He comes to Muhammad while Muhammad is in a cave, and Muhammad was illiterate. And he tells him, Iqra means to recite, commanded the angel Gabriel. Muhammad refused. I'm reading from my book, page 77. But Gabriel was persistent. Again, Muhammad was told to recite. Gabriel commanded, recite in the name of your Lord who created from an embryo, created the human. Okay, listen to that. From the embryo, created the human. Recite, your Lord is all-giving, who taught by the pen, taught the human what he did not know before. And so we have Gabriel, the messenger, talking about how Allah created the human race. We also have when we talk about Allah, he is described as Lord of the worlds, Rabbul Alamein. Mm-hmm. Rabbul Alamein, translated, means Lord of the worlds. So here we have in the Quran Muhammad saying that there is no God but Allah is Lord of the worlds, plural. That's a strong statement because it presupposes more than one world. And some of the extraterrestrials in the book are called jinns. Mm-hmm. The literal meaning of the word jinn is to conceal one's presence or to hide from observation. There's an entire chapter of the Quran about these beings. But they definitely have an otherworldly origin. They're also able to travel through space. It says here in the Quran of chapter 46, verse 29, and we, jinns, know that we cannot escape Allah on earth, nor can we escape him through flight. So they know about flight. Wow. So again, the three monotheistic religions, and I'm not a Muslim, and I don't mean to offend any Muslim, but the research I did for that chapter was from a book called UFOs in the Quran by Abdul Aziz Khan. So I'm not the only person talking about this. Here we have a Muslim brother talking about this. So it appears that the three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, mm-hmm. and Islam, have stories of beings flying in the sky.
And that's the thing, Michael, you would expect to find it in all religions. If you're going to find it in one, you would expect to find it in them all, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I mean, again, many of our ancestors, even today, the First Nations people, we call them Native Americans, they have cosmologies, they have stories about the star people. Yeah. The star people. I have a lot of Cherokee in my blood, and there's stories in the Cherokee cosmology about beings coming from the stars. Yeah. Coming from the Pleiades. Yeah. Coming from these various systems.
I had Nancy Red Star on the show before from Ancient Age.
Yes. She told me.
She
has books out on this stuff.
Yeah, she's got a few. And, I hadn't been aware of this Native American tradition of UFOs or ancestors, as Nancy would call them, and I just
Yes.
find it all fascinating, Michael. It's so fascinating, and it's a story that hasn't been told to, I guess, among Cherokees or among the Native Americans. It's been told, but I guess the time for these guys is to open up now and tell the world because I think they feel the time is right, Michael.
Yes, yes, yes. Probably, there were times when this was secret knowledge, but now, as you say, the time is that all things that were secret will be made known. And the Hopi talk about uh, the fifth world and how the world will be destroyed. The first world was destroyed by flood and that type of thing. I don't know what was the first world. There have been four worlds where we're going into the fourth world, something like that. It slips my mind. But if you want to read up on your own, your listeners read the Hopi. The Hopis have prophecies about beings from the stars and the times we're living in now. So it's out there
Hmm.
if you're willing to look for it and to study. Don't take my word. Read for yourself, study, meditate on these things, and see what resonates with you. And if they don't resonate with you, things don't resonate with you, that's fine. That's fine. That's what life is about. But at least the knowledge will come, and you'll appreciate it more. I'm talking about our audience. Not just you in particular, James,
Yeah.
but you know why it'll resonate? Because you learned it on your own. You didn't take anybody's word for it. You went out there and studied and prayed and meditated, and you came to your own conclusions.
Hmm. Hmm. Tell me about the medieval paintings with all this, what looks like UFOs in the background.
It really does.
This,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
one of the biggest things for me in the research for UFOs in Christian faiths or other faiths. There's these medieval paintings that look like UFOs, and one or two of them even look like they're zapping a beam, Michael.
Yes, there's a. I wanted to get it for my book, but I couldn't get the copy right for it. But there's one painting in particular that intrigues me. There's a wonderful book called The Alien Chronicles by a guy named Matthew Hurley, and the subtitle is "Compelling Evidence for UFOs and Extraterrestrial Encounters in Art and Text Since Ancient Times." And on the front of his book, there's a painting by a Flemish painter named Urt de Gelder. And Urt de Gelder, I think it was in the 1700s, I think. But anyway, it's called The Baptism of Christ. And there is, some people say it's a picture of the sky opening, but there is a picture of John the Baptist and being baptized by Jesus, and there is a UFO, what looks to be a UFO, hovering over them with a beam of light shining down on them. I think that's the picture you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the one.
There's another picture, there's several pictures, but there's a picture of a mother, of the Madonna and child, Jesus and his mother Miriam, and in the back, over I believe her left shoulder, is an object that looks to be like a UFO. And this book is so wonderful because it goes through Chinese art, art here in the East and the West, and all of these pictures that have UFOs. And you have to say, how did this particular artist, I think the one I was talking about was in the 15th century, but how are these artists, why are they painting these craft?
Yeah, there's another one.
There's
There's another one that really gets me. It's I think it's the Virgin Mary, and behind her shoulder, in the distance, in the background, there's what looks like a black UFO.
Yes, and there's someone pointing on it, I think.
Yeah, but the guy has his hands up to his eyes as if looking into the air to look at it to get a better view.
Yes, as if he's shielding his eyes from the sun. I'm looking at it right now. It's called the Virgin Mary and Saint Giovanni School of Lippi, 1406 to 1469.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, in the 14th century, these folks are painting beings in the sky, craft in the sky.
Yeah. I mean, and I've heard other interpretations for them as well. But I mean,
sure.
for me, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the picture. I can see it with my own eyes. I'm looking at it, what it is. You can tell me it's something else all you want, like, but there's a lot of these, like, there is a lot of these.
Yeah, you have to ask. You have to say, okay, whatever you say it is, it is a craft, and it was painted in the 14th century. Okay, so right there, you have to say that there's a question, isn't it? It's the 14th century painting with something in the sky. Tell me that's not the sun, it's not the moon, and so yeah, it gets to be. And you said something. I see with my own eyes. What's the old joke? Are you going to believe me, or are you going to believe your lying eyes? Well, you're going to believe your eyes.
Yeah.
You're going to believe your eyes.
Here's the thing. The most beautiful thing is we didn't have cameras back then to take snapshots of these, but we had people painting pictures, and it's just one of these quirks of fate that stuff like this survives. And I mean, but there's several examples. That's the key thing, Michael.
Yes.
I'm going to get a copy of that book because I have it on record now. You've called out the name of it. I'll get it on the archive show, but I'm going to.
Yeah, you have to get. Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
It's something I want.
By Matthew Hurley, Herley. It's called The Alien Chronicles.
Yeah, and
it's a keeper.
Wasn't there another representation of an aerial battle as well in the medieval times? They talked. There was a woodcut of an aerial battle as well. I can't remember it. It wasn't a painting, but they said there was an aerial battle between UFOs and all. They didn't know how to draw it, so they did a woodcut.
Well, remember now the Mahabharata and the Upanishad. Well, Mahabharata. I mean, they're talking about aerial combat way before medieval times. So yes, I mean, if what they're saying is true, and I see no reason to believe that it isn't true, then this has been going on. Aerial warfare has been going on many thousands of years.
Like you say, they could have had warring factions just like we do today on our, and like there could be good ones, there could be bad ones,
Yes, and so this is, like you say, warring factions, meaning that that they're different species and different races with different agendas, just like we have as human beings. Sure. And so we must keep that in mind, because again, I mentioned it in the book. I don't want us to start getting into intergalactic racism. What does that mean? It simply means this. In our culture, and again, I'm not in Europe, but I know colleagues in Europe. I hear more visits by people who look more human, by ETs who look more human. They call them the Swedes or the Nordic. But what we've done here, which is what human beings do, is that we say, well, they're the benevolent ones because they look more like us. Now, I'm not blonde blue-eyed, so they don't look like us. They may look like a particular segment of the population, but the grays, see, they're dark, and they're small, and they're sinister. Mm. We used to say this about Japanese folk during World War II. But the blonde, blue-eyed ones, well, they're nice, and they want peace, and those things may be true, but let them be true because they're true, not because they're true because they make us more comfortable. Yeah. Because that kind of thing.
That makes
because they look like us.
That makes a lot of sense. I could have, Michael, we're going to come up to the end of the show. I got to talk to you about the Ark of the Covenant before we go.
That's fine. We talked about it on Ancient Aliens season 6.
Oh, what? Yeah. When's that coming out, Michael? When's season 6 coming out, Ancient Aliens?
You know what? I don't know because and they don't know because I taped some episodes in June.
Like they shoot a lot,
and those haven't been shown. Well, they're supposed to be airing those now on the History Channel 2, which I don't get. So if they're just doing so that would be season 5, and I taped those in June. I just taped a few weeks ago for season 6, so season 6 will definitely probably not air until at least maybe January, February.
All right, we've got a while to go yet.
Yeah. But we talked about the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant story begins in Exodus 25, the 25th chapter of Exodus, and Moses and 70 elders are called up by Yahweh to come to the mountain, and we see that Moses and the elders see God. Now, we're told in Exodus 33, it's a little confusing because we're told that no man has seen God and lived, but then a few verses down, we see that there's a verse that says, and God talked to Moses. the Lord talked to Moses face to face as a man talks to a friend. So, of course, the question is, okay, guys, whoever you wrote this, which is it? But that's not the crux of the story. The crux of the story is that the Ark of the Covenant was built by the Hebrew people. Yahweh told them what he wanted, how he wanted it. He wanted it built from pure gold and wood. It's called shittim wood. And he asked for other things. He asked for linen, oil, incense, lighting for lamps. Lamps, we're told. Yes, lamps. Fine linen of purple and crimson and blue and he wanted all these gifts. You have to wonder where the Hebrew slaves got these gifts. They probably stole them from the Egyptians when they were fleeing, because this is, precious metals, copper, these types of things. So they robbed the Egyptians. So there goes one of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal, which is probably mean you shouldn't steal unless your enemies who kept you slaves. It's from your enemies who kept you slaves. And so it's a communication device. Of course, shows like movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and what have you talk about getting it, and there's a legend that Hitler wanted to get his hands on it. I don't know who has it now. They say the Ethiopians had it.
Yeah.
They have it hidden. But it's basically a communication device where Yahweh says, you will get your orders from me. And they're two cherubim. They are made of gold. They're angels, and their wings touch. There's something called the mercy seat that sits above the ark, and this is the communication device. Now, the priest had to wear they had to wear clothing. They had to wash. They could only enter at certain times, and the priests were from the Israelites. They were chosen by Yahweh and Moses. Aaron, Moses' brother, was a priest, and his son, and his son, and his son. So remember, this goes on for generations. It was a very privileged position, but it was also a very dangerous position because people had touched the ark and were electrocuted. A guy named Uzzah was walking alongside the ark. King David was walking in front, and one of the oxen had hit a bump or something, and the ark was wobbly, and Uzzah put his hand to steady the ark, and he died. So there's some electricity, there was no fire or explosion. There were people who got boils and hemorrhoids from it. Yes, hemorrhoids. People think I'm making this up, but you have to read the Bible closely. But in the in Samuel, 1 Samuel, chapter 6, we have the Philistines. They take the ark. They win it. They win the ark in a battle at Mount Shiloh. They win the ark, and they take it from the Israelites, and they're carrying it, and they all get struck down with hemorrhoids. In chapter 5 of 1 Samuel, it says, the hand of the Lord lay heavy upon the Ashdodites, and he wrought havoc among them, and he gave them hemorrhoids. And this, I'm reading from the Hebrew translation. 1 Samuel, verse 5. It says, he struck the city, young and old, so that hemorrhoids broke out among them. In the King James Version, which is the worst translation you can read because it has Jesus speaking Shakespearean English, they call them boils.
Right.
If you go into, it says that the men there, they were stricken with hemorrhoids, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. Again, I use that verse as saying that what type of benevolent God would give young and old hemorrhoids?
This sounds like a dangerous technological device.
It is very dangerous. People touched it and died. There was radiation. And remember, the priests, like we do today when you're working around radiation, you can only enter at certain times. You can only stay in so long. They're wearing a mitre on their head. They're wearing a breastplate. They're wearing clothing to protect their genital area and their heart and lungs.
Wow.
They can only enter at certain times. They have to bathe at certain times. You can read Exodus 25 to get a good grasp of the whole story.
I looked at
Exodus chapter 25.
Sure.
The Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, I looked at the Ethiopian claim and the credit. Well, I've read Graham Hancock's book, The Sign and the Seal, and I've had Graham on the show before. What an awesome researcher, by the way. But
Yes.
I think there's quite a good claim, a good lot of credence for the Ethiopians actually having it, like you know.
I think it is because remember these Ethiopians were Jewish as well. Remember the Ark of the Covenant is sacred because it holds the Ten Commandments. Now of course there's the story about Joshua walking around the city with the Ark 7 times, and then there's a loud noise, a horn is blown, and the walls of Jericho come tumbling down. We
Sure.
could talk about that too.
Please do. I actually wrote about that in my sequel of my book, my own book, Michael, and so please do tell me about that.
Well, I feel that I don't know if the ark made the walls come down, but remember, they're still in the woods, they're still in the wilderness, in the desert actually, and so remember, they still have that spaceship flying over them, leading them.
Hmm.
So my contention is that possibly that the craft had helped them to make the walls crumble. It was definitely, the ark was mainly a communication device, and it was very dangerous. I mean, when the priests carried the ark, they walked at least a mile away from the rest of the tribe. Those who were carrying the priests who were in charge of the ark.
Sure.
They walked because people were getting radiation, and of course these people were ignorant. They didn't know. They thought that the Lord was angry. Who was it? A couple other of Moses' nephews were killed. I think it was in the book of Numbers, where they had some incense in there and it caught fire and they were killed. And so the people thought that they were killed because they brought unholy incense
Right.
into the temple. But dangerous work. But of course, very prestigious work. A lot of Levites were priests even to the time of Jesus, and this is why the priests held so much power and authority. They had a lineage since the time of Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have Jesus coming and saying that I'm greater than Moses, or people saying that he said that. Moses represented the law. Jesus was saying, I'm trying to tell you how to fulfill that law. And the way to fulfill the law is with love and forgiveness. But Moses, Yahweh was very strict in your rules. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. But remember, that only applied to other Jews. You didn't steal your Jewish brother's wife. You didn't commit adultery with her. But you could go into the Canaanites' land, the land of Canaan, and you could kill men, women, and children.
Yeah.
Because Yahweh says, this land is yours. Well, it's like Columbus saying, this land is mine, when there are people already living there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have this astronaut saying, this is the land that I will give you. But that's lovely. But hey, man, there are people living there.
Yeah.
There are people living here. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Such a knowledgeable guy, Michael. You really are. You're such a knowledgeable guy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you are, and it's the detail of the knowledge. This is a lot of research for you, Michael. Even just to orate this and contextualize it in for people like me, I suppose, who are not theology based. I'm like Mr. Scientist, Mr. Engineer, and I look at this stuff and I go, well, I haven't looked at this before. I think this is important. Why have I not heard about this? And it's like it's only for guys like yourself, Michael, that just kind of put this all together for us and like enable.
Well, but you know what? And you and I need each other. Science needs religion, and religion needs science, because in a technological age like this, where we do have ET visitors, we need the technology, but we also need the spirituality to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we live in a world where we're slaves to technology. I mean, we got iPhones and iPads and computers, and we Skype, and we do all these things. And the very things that were supposed to make our lives easier and simpler has now made us more busy.
Sure. Funny enough, Michael, you mentioned crystals earlier too, and
Yeah.
I'll probably blow you away with this, but there's another researcher called Maurice Cotterell, and Maurice has given me some very privileged knowledge, and because he knew where I was going in my research, and these ancient monuments that I researched, there's a lot of crystal in them, quartz crystal, white quartz crystal.
Yes, they're conductors of energy.
Yeah, but what the thing is, there was a major fertility problem around the time that these monuments were built, around 3113 BC, that the Mayan put it to. But in around 3200 to 3000 BC, there was a major fertility problem on this planet because of sunspot cycles. And hey
Okay.
presto, the sunbeams coming down these chambers, right, lighting up all the quartz. But when electromagnetic light, now this is the science meets religion. This is where I'm going with this, Michael. But
Yes.
these guys were researching spirituality. These were conscious beings. They were exploring their consciousness and their spirituality. But there was also a fertility problem, and I think these guys knew. I think somebody told them. Personally, I don't think they just figured this all out without a scientific doctrine there. But the point is that when the electromagnetic light hits quartz, it bends it into a more magnetic shift, and
Okay.
in doing that more magnetic shift, Michael, it helps fertility. Now, did they know the exact scientific process? I don't think so, but I think somebody told them. Like, now, who's that somebody? That's the big question, Michael.
Well, see, that's always the question. Where's the knowledge coming from? It's not so much that they have it, but where are they getting it?
Yeah.
And that, again, that opens up the thesis for maybe ancient aliens.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to, I just before we go, because I know you just mentioned you had to go, I wanted just to tell people where they could get the book.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes yet, Michael. I want to.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, but
Great.
I'm gonna. Well, I guess just give us the website. I want to ask you with the Nephilim before we go. You're not going anywhere till you tell me with the Nephilim.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, no, and I'm not in any great hurry, believe me. Okay, first of all, you can get the book at AmazonUK.com. You can get it at Barnes and Nobles, Nook or Kindle. It's called Ancient Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible by Michael J. Carter. You can go to my website, which is www.michaeljscarter.com. I was having some problems with the site yesterday, but hopefully by tomorrow it will be fixed, and you can click on the book hopefully sometime this week, and you can get the book. The book is $9.89. The Kindle version is $4.99.
Wow,
the Nephilim, the ones who came down to Earth. Sitchin talks about this a lot. I know Mark had mentioned to you, Mark Eddy, that I had met Sitchin and had coffee with him
yes,
once
he has.
on the Upper West Side. He lived a few blocks from me. The Nephilim were, in Genesis, we talk about the Nephilim as those who came down and intermarried and breeded with earth women and created the giants of renown. Some people speculate that Goliath may have been one of those giants. The Book of Enoch, which is a book that was not, it's a separate book. I highly commend it to you because it goes more into the story of the Nephilim. Enoch was a scribe for the Nephilim. But they talk about that in 2 Samuel chapter 21. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also was descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, slew him. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath. Now, these giants were the offspring of the Nephilim. Remember, they were part human and part extraterrestrial because they had made love or had sex the old-fashioned way with earth women. And so, and there is speculation. It's easy to speculate, and it's probably intelligent that the story of David and Goliath was probably one of the giants.
Wow, what a fascinating. This thing. How has this been overlooked for so long, Michael? This story, this anecdotal evidence, like.
Well, I think like I said, human consciousness is slow, but it does evolve, and I think it was probably just too. Not only was it too far-fetched for people to believe, but, how am I going to get tenured position if I bring this up? I'm an academic, let's say, and I'm at a certain academic institution, and I start saying, hey, I've been reading Graham Hancock. I've been reading Zachariah Sitchin. I've been reading, John Mack. I've been reading about archaeology, and alternative archaeology, and I've come up with another theory, and wow, we got to look at this stuff, and people are going to resist that. People's careers are on the line here. I'm reading Forbidden Archaeology, by Cremo and Thompson, and I want you to read this stuff, and you're not going to get a job. You're not going to keep a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Saying that history is so different from what I'm sure that's involved. Also, the fear factor of being ridiculed. John Mack had a hard time at Harvard. Remember, they wanted to get rid of him there when he started talking about hypnotism, and these young people and old people are talking about this is very real. They've been abducted.
Sure.
So there's a lot of reasons why it's overlooked. Maybe it's overlooked intentionally, I'm sure. Sometimes it's not so intentionally.
Michael, I was in university, and my colleague, this wasn't just somebody I was with for a week or so. I was with him for a long period of time, and we had found an asteroid together and doing astronomy and stuff like that. The asteroid had been discovered already, but it hadn't been seen. It was only ever seen once in its lifetime. We were the second people to find it again, and it was a test we had to go through for our research and stuff. But so we found an asteroid together, so there's a bit of camaraderie between us. But he asked me what I did as a hobby, and I jokingly said to him, but it was serious too. I said I researched Atlantis, and he never spoke to me again.
Oh yeah, it's done. Yeah, because people think you're crazy.
Yeah.
But look, what a difference 15, 20 years makes. I remember when I could talk about this, but I couldn't talk about my contact experiences because my professional life was at stake.
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways maybe one's private life is at stake. If you're going to tell you're dating or you're going out, not unless you got a very open-minded partner, and you're going to say, hey, I write about ETs in the Bible, or hey, I've seen people from other planets. Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really?
I know.
Do I want to be in relationship with you? It's a very, there's data that shows that a lot of folk, at least it was, who one of the marriages, it's hard to sustain a marriage if you're having these experiences. If your partner either doesn't believe you or you're having trauma, your relationships can be destroyed.
For sure. I was going to say, Michael, your website's up and running there. I was looking at it earlier, the michaeljscarter.com, and you can click the book. You can click on the web link for the book there, because I did that already today.
Yes, good, because a friend of mine went on it today. He said it's not up yet, and I said, how can it not be up yet? And I went on and I saw it. So if you go, it should be up in the next couple of days. James just said he went there. But if you don't go there, then just go to Amazon.com UK or Barnes & Nobles, and they will have Kindle or paperback.
Sure. And I'm going to have you linked up on the CapricornRadio.com archive biography page as well, a clickable link as well, Michael. But
right, and I'm going to read your book and review it, and
thanks,
so
Michael. Yeah.
I'll send that to you probably in a couple of weeks.
I never mention it on the show very much. Sometimes people know that I'm.
Well, you got to. You listen. You're doing a service. You're giving people things to think about so they don't think they're crazy. You're giving people hope. You're healing them in a lot of ways that I'm not crazy, and I've come to these conclusions too. And so if you hide your light under a bushel, James, nobody will see it.
I know. I'm my own worst publicist. I'm telling you, I'm not a great publicist for myself. I love doing research. You see, that's my problem. Is I just love doing the research too much, and I'm a bit selfish. I'm like a kid in a candy store with research and information. I just like we said, Michael, we're both water signs. We're both Cancerians.
Yes, which is why we're into this in a lot of ways anyway. But yeah, I'm telling you that you need to read James's book.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to be reading it, and you want to read it as well. And we get your information out to you, but we also need to pay our bills and our rent, and we have families. So if you can help out in that way, we'd be more than happy.
Thank you, Michael.
It's a free energy exchange.
Thank you, Michael. Before we go, Michael, what's new for you? What are you doing today?
Well, what I'm doing now, I'm the minister at a Unitarian Universalist church here where I live in Western North Carolina. I just signed a 2-year contract. I don't know when another book is going to be. I'm trying to get on a UFO lecture circuit for 2014. I have a wonderful publicist, Mark Eddy. I have a wonderful publisher, Brian Kennard. He's my publisher, and so we'll just see where the spirit leads. I have a wonderful 7-year-old daughter that I'm trying to spend more time with, and so basically right now, just running that church and getting it to grow is what I'm doing now, and trying to enjoy life while I have it.
Good.
And we'll see if there's another book or something in the works, maybe in a year or two.
I really hope you do another book, Michael. I really do. I really, really do. It's a wonderful book, and it's a wonderful collection of information from historical concept to biblical concepts from all different faiths, and it's well compiled,
I thank you.
It's an enjoyable read, and it's like, and this is even for me from a non-theological background. I am a spiritual person, and I believe my
no question. Yeah, I can feel that from you.
Yeah, my God, I don't know. I don't define them too well, but I do go for chat.
Well, you can't. I don't either.
I don't even think you can sometimes. Yeah, I do go up to the top of Ireland sometimes to my mountain, and I have like a beautiful sunset over the top of Ireland, and that's when I have my chat with the man above, and I do go quite regularly. Like actually a lot more often at the moment for some reason.
I do it too, a lot more often now. But I don't. Yeah, any God we can define as not God, because the finite can never comprehend the infinite, ever. Hybrid or not, I mean, there certainly is a great possibility of that, but basically, he's the great example. He's not the exception. And there's a quote, I think it's in the book of Matthew, when he's saying to the disciples, greater things than I do, you can do.
Sure.
But we don't. But the only thing that keeps us from doing that is that we don't believe it. Not really. And I'm not talking about walking on water. I'm not talking about changing water into wine. I'm talking about being the full, creative, vital, robust, health, loving people that we really can be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about miracles per se, but that is a miracle, isn't it? To be able to be loving and healing towards one another. That's where the healing takes place. I think Jesus was part human and part extraterrestrial.
Demigod.
I would say hybrid.
Hybrid.
Yeah, a demigod for me has the connotation of a tyrant. I know that's not what you're implying, but I think he was a hybrid. Like I said, if the Holy Spirit, i.e., UFO technology going into the embryo, because see, virgin, we can do it two ways. The word alma in Hebrew means virgin. St. Jerome changed it to Jesus was born of a virgin, a woman whose hymen wasn't broken. No, that's not what it meant at all. In Hebrew,
you must follow von Daniken's work then a little.
Yes, he was very influential. He wasn't the most. See, a lot of people say he wasn't scientific. I didn't care about what scientific meant. It was just that he opened up possibilities.
Yeah.
With the Nazca lines in South America. I mean, who is making it? It looks like an airfield, but you can only see it from above.
Sure.
So why would our ancient ancestors make that airstrip? Yeah. Not unless, if they made it at all. But it's the technology is there, and we need to be looking at this.
That was my show, Michael. Funny enough. I just did a show on Wednesday with Brian Forster on the Nazca lines, funny enough.
Yes. I mean, I just had a friend come back from Peru. She brought me some crystals back. I'm meeting her for dinner tomorrow evening, and so I can't wait because crystals are very powerful and that kind of thing. And a lot of people think, oh my God, it's still New Age. This is not New Age stuff, friends. This is ancient knowledge that we're rediscovering. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us there's nothing new under the sun. It's just that this knowledge is new to us, and so. We say it's New Age, but this is ancient knowledge, that the fact that thoughts are things, the fact that you create your own reality. Psalm 82 says, is it not said that ye are gods and children of the Most High? There's a God quality in us, if you want to use the word. You can use another word. divine mind, universal intelligence, the source, the force. Call it what you will, but call on it because it's inside of us. It's like going to the ocean. The information from the book of Ezekiel about what Ezekiel said he saw, and it's on the cover of his book, and it's an aircraft. It's a flying saucer.
Right.
And Ezekiel is taken up into this, and he talks about what he sees. The Lord, he calls the Lord sitting on a throne, and he talks about what the throne looks like, and it seemed like it could have been a tile floor with colors going on and off. But I mean, this is definitely a craft, and not only because of this, but it drops him off places. I mean, it picks him up and it takes him places.
Sure.
It's like a taxi. And so, you know, what do we do? Again, do we say, oh, come on, man, these guys are crazy? Or do we say that these brothers and sisters, our ancestors, are saying that we have had contact? And the technology, of course, is what blows them out of the water. Mm-hmm. And they would be gods. These extraterrestrials would be gods to primitive human beings.
Sure.
You know, if we took an iPhone out and pulled it out in front of Ezekiel, he may say, "Man, that looks like something I've seen on the ship." Yeah. But this technology, it's godlike.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure.
It's godlike, and I think that the Bible is full of these types of stories. Again, I go back to Isaiah. How did Isaiah know that the earth was round? How did he know that it was a sphere?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And taking a drop of water, taking some water out of the ocean, and the water that you put in the glass from the ocean starts to think it's separate from the ocean. No, you're not separate from the ocean. I just put you in a glass. You're part of the ocean. The ocean's part of you. You just have a different container now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we've been taught to think that we are separate, that we are miserable sinners, that we are, we're anything but as powerful as we really are. Do we do heinous things to each other? Of course we do. Do we kill and murder each other? Of course we do. Out of ignorance.
Out of ignorance, exactly. Out of ignorance to what we are.
Out of ignorance.
For sure. So, Michael, where does Jesus fit into all this? That's the big question there, I guess.
Well, for me, I look at Jesus as an example of what is potential in me and you. I mean, if he says, and I believe he did say something similar to it, that the kingdom of heaven is within you, then that means that the potential to be who he was or is, and like I'm not trying to be Jesus, I'm trying to be the best Michael I can be, but there's the potential in me to love. There's the potential to love wastefully, as the Reverend Bishop Spong used to say, or still says. I mean, he's not dead, but I love that, to love wastefully, to forgive, to be healed and to heal, to love. I mean, that's all potential in me. And so the teachings of Jesus, whether you think or one thinks he's a high
The question, Michael, explains a lot, though, doesn't it? It explains a hell of a lot of problems and anomalies that we have.
It opens up a lot of possibilities. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And we have Jesus saying in the book of John before Pilate, you are from below, I am from above. Your kingdom is of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. Now, either he was speaking very metaphorically or he was speaking literally.
Sure. You mentioned Ezekiel's wheel. Ezekiel there. There's a thing called Ezekiel's wheel. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because are we talking a UFO here? Ezekiel.
Well, there's a wonderful book called The Spaceships of Ezekiel. The guy's last name is Bloomrich, Blumrich. He was a NASA scientist. And what he did, and you can Google this, the spaceships of Ezekiel, what he did was he took now remember, this is a NASA scientist, and he takes